The wind carried dust like whispers across the plains, dry and restless, as if the land itself remembered every secret buried beneath it. By late afternoon, the sun hung low over Red Hollow, turning the entire valley into a burnished sea of gold. The town, if it could be called that, was little more than a scatter of wooden buildings clinging to existence between the desert and the mountains. A saloon with a crooked sign, a general store that doubled as a post office, a church that hadn't seen a preacher in months, and beyond it all, miles of ranch land, stitched together by fences and hope. That day, the town wasn't quiet. A crowd had gathered just outside the northern ridge, where the Apache camp stood, like a line drawn between two worlds. Horses snorted nervously. Men shifted in their saddles, some trying to look brave, others failing. They had come for her. Ayanna stood at the center of it all. She didn't look like someone who needed saving, or choosing, or protecting. She looked like a storm that had learned how to wear a woman's face. Her dark hair fell in a single braid over her shoulder, adorned with small silver beads that caught the sunlight. Her eyes sharp, unyielding, moved slowly across the line of men before her. Cowboys, outlaws, sons of ranchers, fighters from nearby territories. Nearly 100 of them had come, drawn by rumors and pride. A challenge had been declared. Ayanna, daughter of a fallen Apache chief, had refused every arranged marriage offered to secure alliances after her father's death. Tribal elders had grown restless. Rivals circled like wolves. And so, a test was set. Any man who wished to claim her hand would have to face her, not in courtship, in combat, not to kill but to prove strength, courage, and spirit. One by one, they tried, and one by one, they failed. Ayanna moved like wind over sand, untouchable, unpredictable. She disarmed warriors twice her size, sent seasoned fighters sprawling into the dirt, and left egos shattered alongside bruised bones. By the time the sun dipped lower, 98 men had already tasted defeat. The 99th was on his knees, coughing blood into the dust. The crowd murmured, "She's not human," someone whispered. "No man's going to win her," another muttered. Ayanna stood still, breathing evenly, as if she hadn't just fought nearly 100 men. "Next," she said, her voice calm but cutting through the air like a blade. Silence answered her. No one moved. No one dared. From the far edge of the crowd, a horse stepped forward. Slow, unhurried. The rider didn't look like much. His hat was pulled low, shadowing his face. His coat was worn, dust-stained from long travel. A rifle hung loosely across his back, and a revolver rested at his hip, not polished, not flashy. Used. He didn't carry himself like the others. No puffed chest. No need to prove anything. Just quiet. The horse stopped a few yards from the ring. The rider swung down with a fluid ease, boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. He removed his hat, revealing a face marked by sun and time, not old, but not untouched by hardship either. His eyes met hers, gray, steady, unshaken. The crowd stirred. "Who the hell is that?" someone asked. "Never seen him before." Another fool. The stranger didn't respond to any of it. He stepped forward into the ring, dust curling around his boots. Ayanna studied him. Something was different. Not stronger, not faster, not bigger, just different. "You came late," she said. "I wasn't in a hurry," he replied. His voice was low, calm, like he had all the time in the world. A faint flicker of something passed through her eyes. Annoyance? Curiosity? "Do you know what this is?" she asked. "I heard enough. And you still came?" Why?" He tilted his head slightly, considering. Then he said, "Didn't seem right that no one had won yet." A few men in the crowd laughed. Ayanna didn't. Her gaze sharpened. "Name?" "Elias." "No tribe?" "No ranch, Mark?" "No name behind your name?" she pressed. He shook his head once. "Just Elias." She circled him slowly. "Do you think you're stronger than them?" she asked. "No." "Faster?" "No." "Then why step forward when 99 others failed?" Elias met her gaze without hesitation. "Because they were trying to beat you." Pause. "And you're not?" she asked. He shook his head again. "I'm trying to understand you. The wind seemed to still. For the first time that day, Ayanna hesitated. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. Understanding doesn't win fights, she said. Maybe not, he replied, but it wins something else. What? He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, not aggressive, not defensive, just present. Whenever you're ready, he said. The crowd leaned in. Ayanna moved first, fast, too fast for most to follow. She closed the distance in a heartbeat, aiming to disarm him like the others. Her hand shot toward his wrist, but he didn't resist. He stepped aside, not blocking, not countering, just stepping aside. Her momentum carried her forward. She turned, striking again faster, sharper. Again, he moved, not reacting like a fighter, more like someone dancing around a storm, letting it pass without trying to stop it. The crowd murmured, confused. What's he doing? Why isn't he fighting back? Ayanna's attacks grew sharper, more precise, more dangerous. Each one should have landed. Each one should have ended it. But Elias kept moving, not perfectly, not flawlessly, but enough. Enough to stay standing. Enough to stay close. Minutes passed. Then longer. Sweat gathered at her brow. Her breathing changed just slightly. Frustration flickered. You're not fighting, she said, circling him again. Oh, you're avoiding. I'm learning. Her eyes narrowed. Learning what? You. That word again. It hit differently this time. She lunged. He didn't move away. Not this time. He stepped in, close enough that her strike slowed just a fraction, uncertain. His hand caught her wrist. Not tight, not forceful, just enough to stop it. The world seemed to hold its breath. No one had touched her like that all day. Her eyes snapped to his. For a moment, neither of them moved. Now what? She asked quietly. Elias didn't tighten his grip, didn't try to throw her, didn't claim victory. He simply said, now you decide. Decide what? If this is about winning or choosing. The words settled between them like something heavier than dust, something dangerous, something real. Slowly, very slowly, Ayanna pulled her hand back. She stepped away. The crowd erupted in confused noise. What happened? Did he win? Did she lose? But neither of them looked at the crowd. They were still looking at each other. You're not like them, she said. No, Elias replied. Why? A faint smile touched his lips, not proud, not mocking, just honest. Because I didn't come to take anything from you. The wind returned, sweeping through the valley. Ayanna turned away from him, looking out toward the horizon, where the sun dipped lower, bleeding red into the sky. Nearly 100 men had come to claim her. Power, status, control. But this man, he had come with nothing. And somehow, that made him the most dangerous of all. You should leave, she said, her voice quieter now. Why? Because men who don't want anything are the hardest to fight. Elias placed his hat back on his head. Good thing I'm not here to fight. She glanced back at him. For the first time, there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Not anger, not defiance. Something softer, something uncertain, something human. Then why are you here, Elias? She asked. He paused, then said, I think you already know. The sun slipped behind the mountains, and in that fading light, Ayanna realized something she hadn't expected. Out of 100 warriors, she hadn't been defeated, but she had been seen, and that terrified her far more than losing ever could. The night settled over Red Hollow like a slow-drawn curtain, pulling shadows across the land and swallowing the last traces of sunlight. Fires began to flicker in the Apache camp, small constellations of orange scattered against the dark earth. The air cooled, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and smoke and something else. Tension. Ayanna stood just beyond the edge of the camp, her arms crossed, eyes fixed on the horizon as if she could still see him there. Long after he'd disappeared into the gathering dark. Elias. The name lingered in her thoughts like an unfinished sentence. Behind her, the low murmur of voices rose and fell. The elders were already speaking, she could feel it. Judgment had begun the moment she stepped away from the fight without declaring a victor or a defeat. Ayanna, The voice was old but steady. She didn't turn immediately. She knew who it was. Dakota, one of the last remaining elders who had stood beside her father. His hair had gone silver years ago, his face carved with time and hardship, but his eyes remained sharp to miss anything. "You did not finish what was started," he said. "I did," she replied quietly. "No." Dakota stepped closer, his shadow joining hers. "You did not win, and I did not lose." Silence stretched between them. "That is not how this works," he said. Ayanna finally turned, her gaze unwavering. "Then maybe it should not work at all." Dakota's jaw tightened. This was not a game. It was a decision for the future of our people. "And forcing me into marriage is not a future," she snapped, her voice cutting through the night air. "It is survival, it is control, it is peace. It is a cage." Their words collided like flint and steel, sparking something dangerous. Dakota studied her for a long moment. "You refused 99 men," he said slowly. "Strong men, brave men, men who would have fought for you, for us. I do not need someone to fight for me. Everyone needs someone eventually." Ayanna shook her head. "Not like that." Dakota exhaled, glancing toward the darkness beyond the camp. "And the 100th?" he asked. Her silence said more than any answer. Dakota's eyes narrowed slightly. "You did not defeat." "No." "You did not dismiss." "No." "Then what is he?" Ayanna hesitated. The truth sat on the edge of her tongue, but it felt too dangerous to speak. "I don't know," she admitted. "That, more than anything," and settled the old man. "Strangers do not appear in times like these without purpose," Dakota said. "Men who have nothing often have the most to hide." Ayanna looked away again, toward the endless stretch of desert. "Or nothing to lose," she said softly. Dakota's voice hardened. "Those are the most dangerous kind." Miles away from the camp, beneath a sky thick with stars, Elias sat beside a small fire, his horse grazing quietly nearby. He hadn't gone far, not really. The flames crackled, casting flickering shadows across his face as he stared into them, lost in thought. He could have left, should have left. Men like him didn't belong in places like Red Hollow, not anymore. But something had rooted him there, something he didn't fully understand. Or maybe, something he understood too well. A sound broke through the stillness. A horse, fast. Elias didn't reach for his gun, didn't move at all. He just waited. Moments later, a figure emerged from the darkness, riding hard. The horse slowed as it approached the fire, hooves kicking up dust. The rider dismounted before the animal had fully stopped. Ayanna. She didn't speak at first. Neither did he. The firelight danced between them, illuminating the distance she had crossed, not just in miles. "You shouldn't be here," Elias said finally. "You didn't leave." "I was going to." "You're still here." Faint smile tugged at his lips. "Seems like we're both making poor decisions tonight." Ayanna stepped closer, her gaze searching his face. "Who are you?" she asked. "Still Elias." "That's not what I mean." "I know." Silence. Again. But this one felt different. "Heavy or honest. You fight like a man who's been in war," she said. "I have." "You move like someone who doesn't want to hurt anyone." He looked at her. "Then not anymore." Ayanna studied him carefully. "You could have beaten me," she said. He shook his head. "No, you had the chance." "I had the opportunity," he corrected. "Not the intention." "Why?" Elias poked at the fire with the stick, sending a shower of sparks into the night. "Because winning would have meant taking something you weren't offering." "And what was I offering?" she asked quietly. He met her gaze. "A choice." The word settled between them again. "Dangerous, unavoidable." Ayanna exhaled slowly. "You don't know what that means for me." "Then tell me." She hesitated. Then, for reasons she couldn't fully explain, she did. "My father was chief," she began. "When he died, everything changed. The tribes around us, some loyal, some not, started watching, waiting. Weakness spreads fast out here." Elias listened without interrupting. "The elders think marriage will secure alliances, strengthen our position, keep us safe. And you don't agree. I think it makes me a bargaining piece, and you don't want to be owned." Her eyes flashed. I will never be owned. Elias nodded. I believe that. Something in his tone, simple, certain, caught her off guard. Most men challenged her, doubted her, tried to prove something. He just believed. Then why stay? She asked. Why involve yourself in something that isn't yours? Elias leaned back slightly, looking up at the stars. For a long time, kept moving, he said. Town to town, job to job. Didn't stay anywhere long enough to matter. And now? Now I'm tired of running. From what? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quiet. Myself. Ayanna watched him closely. There was something in his eyes, something heavy, something familiar. You lost someone, she said. It wasn't a question. Elias's jaw tightened slightly. Yeah. Family? He shook his head. Wife. The word hung in the air. Ayanna felt it. Not just the meaning, the weight behind it. What happened? War happened, he said simply. Wrong place. Wrong time. I'm sorry. He nodded once. Me too. Silence returned. But it wasn't empty. It was full of things neither of them needed to say. After a moment, Ayanna spoke again. If you stay, she said, you'll be pulled into this. The tribes, the conflicts, the decisions. I figured. It won't be simple. It never is. You could die. Elias gave a small, almost amused breath. Wouldn't be the first time I've risked it. Ayanna stepped closer. Why? She pressed. Why take that risk? For me? Elias looked at her for a long moment, then said, I'm not doing it for you. Her expression hardened slightly. Then for what? For what you represent. And what is that? Someone who refuses to be told who they belong to. The words hit deeper than she expected, because they were true, and because no one had ever said them like that before. You don't even know me, she said. I know enough. That's not possible. Elias stood, closing the distance between them. Then tell me I'm wrong. She opened her mouth, stopped, couldn't, because he wasn't. The wind shifted, carrying the distant sound of horses. Both of them heard it. Both of them turned. Riders, more than a few, coming fast. Ayanna's expression changed instantly, sharp, alert. That's not my people, she said. Elias was already reaching for his rifle. How many? Too many for a friendly visit. The riders crested a nearby ridge, silhouettes against the starlit sky. Armed, organized, dangerous. Elias's eyes narrowed. Looks like your problems just got bigger. Ayanna stepped back toward her horse. No, she said, her voice steady despite the rising threat. Our problems. For a split second, their eyes met, and something passed between them. Not agreement. Not yet. But something close. Something inevitable. Elias gave a small nod. All right, he said. Let's see what a stranger, cowboy, and a woman who refused 100 warriors can do together. The riders charged down the ridge. The night exploded into motion. And just like that, the real fight began. The riders came like a storm breaking loose from the hills, dark shapes cutting through silver moonlight, hooves pounding the earth with a rhythm that meant only one thing in the west. Trouble had arrived. Elias didn't hesitate. He moved fast, grabbing his rifle and stepping in front of Ayanna, not to shield her, but to stand beside her. There was no protection in his stance, only partnership. How many? He asked again, his voice low and steady. Ayanna narrowed her eyes, counting shadows as they split across the ridge. 15, maybe 20, she said. Not Apache, not any tribe I know. Elias worked the lever of his rifle, the metallic click sharp against the night air. Outlaws then, oh, she said quietly. Outlaws don't ride like that. He followed her gaze. She was right. These men moved with purpose, formation, discipline. This wasn't a random attack. This was planned. The first shot cracked through the silence. Ayanna's horse reared slightly, startled, but she calmed it instantly, her hand steady on the reins. Down, Elias barked. Another shot rang out, kicking up dirt just inches from them. No more time for questions. They moved. Elias grabbed Ayana's arm not forcefully, but urgently, and pulled her toward a cluster of rocks just off the ridge. Bullets struck the ground behind them, sharp and angry, sending dust into the air. They dove behind cover just as another volley ripped through the space they had occupied seconds before. Silence followed, but it was the kind of silence that waited for blood. "You know them?" Elias asked, checking his rifle. Ayana shook her head, breathing steady despite the chaos. "No, but they know me." "That's not comforting. They're not here for you." Elias glanced at her, then back toward the ridge where the riders were spreading out. "Give it time." Figure stepped forward from the group, dismounting slowly. He moved with confidence, like a man who believed the night already belonged to him. His voice carried easily across the distance. "Ayana." She stiffened. Elias noticed. "You recognize him?" Her jaw tightened. "Rafael Cruz." The name landed heavy. "Should I?" Elias asked. "He's not a tribal leader," she said. "Not officially, but he commands men. Dangerous men." Rafael took a few steps closer, his boots crunching against gravel. "Did you really think you could keep playing games?" he called out. "Refusing warriors like you're untouchable?" Ayana rose just enough to be seen, her posture straight, unafraid. "This is not your land, Rafael," she said. "Leave while you still can." A low chuckle echoed from him. "Your land?" he replied. "You have no land, no protection, no alliances." His eyes flicked briefly toward Elias. "And now, you hide behind strangers?" Elias stood slowly, stepping into view beside her. "I'm not hiding," he said calmly. Raphael's gaze sharpened. "No, you're something else." A pause. Then a smirk. "You're the one," Raphael said. "The cowboy who didn't fight back." Elias shrugged slightly. "Didn't seem necessary." Raphael laughed short, amused, but cold. "That's because you don't understand what's happening here. Then enlighten me." Raphael spread his arms slightly, gesturing to the land around them. "Power is shifting. Tribes are weakening. Ranchers are expanding. And men like me." He tapped his chest lightly. "We take what's left." Ayana's voice cut through. "You take nothing from my people." Raphael's expression hardened. "You have no people if you stand alone." Silence fell again. This time, it wasn't waiting. It was deciding. Raphael lifted his hand slightly. His men raised their rifles. Elias exhaled slowly. "Well," he muttered, "guess talking's over." The first volley came fast. Elias dropped behind cover, firing back almost instantly. His shot found its mark. One of the riders went down hard, hitting the ground with a heavy thud. Ayana moved beside him, her own weapon drawn, her movements precise and controlled. She fired once clean, sharp, and another man fell. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The rhythm formed naturally. He covered. She struck. She moved. He adjusted. Two strangers, fighting like they'd done it 100 times before. Left. She called. Elias shifted, firing toward a flanking rider before the man could get a clear shot. "Got him," Elias said. Ayana didn't respond. She was already moving again, darting between rocks with a speed that made her nearly impossible to track. But the numbers were against them. More riders circled, more bullets tore through the night. "They're trying to surround us," Elias said. "I see that. We need to move." "Where?" He glanced toward the darker stretch of land beyond the ridge. "There's a dry ravine about 50 yards out," he said. "Gives us cover. Narrows their approach." Ayana nodded once. "On your mark." Elias fired 2 quick shots, forcing the nearest riders to pull back slightly. Now, they ran. Bullets chased them, snapping through the air like angry hornets. One grazed Elias's shoulder, tearing through fabric and skin. He didn't stop, didn't even slow. Ayana reached the ravine first, sliding down the slope and turning instantly to cover him. She fired twice, forcing the riders to hesitate just long enough for Elias to dive in beside her. They hit the ground hard, breathing fast but controlled. "You're hit," she said, noticing the blood. "Just a scratch." "That's not a scratch. I've had worse." She didn't argue, didn't waste time. Instead, she tore a strip of cloth from her sleeve and pressed it against the wound. her movements quick but careful. Elias winced slightly. "Easy," he muttered. "Be still." He smirked faintly despite the situation. "Yes, ma'am." She shot him a brief look, half irritation, half something else. Then the shooting started again. But this time, it was different. The ravine gave them advantage. The riders couldn't surround them easily, couldn't rush them all at once, and one by one, the numbers began to drop. Elias fired with calm precision. Each shot measured, each movement efficient. Ayanna moved like a shadow beside him, her strikes quick and unforgiving. Minutes stretched. Gunfire echoed. Dust rose, and then silence. Elias waited a moment longer before lifting his head slightly. The ridge was still. The remaining riders were gone, retreated, not defeated entirely, but not victorious either. Ayanna exhaled slowly, lowering her weapon. "They'll be back," she said. "Yeah," Elias agreed. "Men like that don't quit easy." She looked at him, her expression serious. "This wasn't random, I figured. They're testing us." "Testing you?" She shook her head. "No, us." Elias leaned back against the cool earth of the ravine, letting out a slow breath. "Well," he said, "guess I'm officially involved now." A faint, almost reluctant smile touched her lips. "You were the moment you didn't leave." He looked at her, really looked this time. The firelight from earlier was gone. The crowd was gone. The challenge was gone. What remained was real. "You should go back to your camp," he said. "They'll be worried. They'll be angry." "That too." She hesitated, then asked, "Will you come?" Elias blinked slightly, surprised. "With you?" "Yes." "Into a camp that already doesn't trust me?" "They don't trust anyone right now." "That's reassuring." Her gaze softened just a fraction. "They will listen to me, and if they don't..." Ayanna held his gaze. "Then they will learn." There was something in her voice, something unshakable. Elias considered it for a moment, then nodded. "All right," he said. "Lead the way." They climbed out of the ravine together, the night stretching wide around them. The danger wasn't gone, even close, but something had changed between them, not just survival, just alliance. Something deeper, something neither of them had planned. As they mounted their horses and rode toward the distant glow of the Apache camp, the wind carried the faint echo of what was coming. War, and somewhere in the middle of it, a love neither of them had expected. The camp was awake long before they reached it. Torches burned brighter than usual, casting long, restless shadows across the land. Figures moved quickly between tents, voices sharp, urgent. Word had already spread of gunfire in the night, of riders in the dark, of something shifting beyond their borders. As Ayanna and Elias approached, several warriors stepped forward, weapons drawn, not raised, but ready. They saw her first. Relief flickered. Then they saw him. And everything changed. "Stop there." One of them called. Ayanna slowed her horse, but didn't stop completely until she reached the edge of the firelight. Elias rode beside her, calm, unreadable, his eyes scanning everything without seeming to. "He's with me," Ayanna said firmly. "That doesn't make him welcome," another warrior replied. Elias tilted his head slightly, almost amused. "Fair enough," he muttered. Ayanna dismounted in one smooth motion, her presence alone enough to quiet some of the rising tension. "We were attacked," she said. "Riders from the West Ridge, armed, organized." Murmurs rippled through the gathered men. "Who?" someone asked. "Rafael Cruz," she answered. That name hit harder than the gunfire had. Dakota stepped forward from the crowd, his expression darkening. "So it begins," he said quietly. Ayanna met his gaze. "It already has." Dakota's eyes shifted to Elias. "And this one?" he asked. Elias didn't move, didn't speak. Ayanna answered for him. "He fought beside me. That does not make him one of us." "No," she said. "But it makes him necessary." The word hung in the air. Necessary, not welcome, trusted, but needed. Dakota studied Elias for a long moment. Then he said, "Bring him." The council fire burned at the center of the camp, its flames rising high as if trying to push back the weight pressing down on everyone present. Elders gathered. Warriors stood at the edges. Ayanna sat near the fire, her posture straight, her presence commanding. Elias stood slightly behind her, not out of submission, but out of respect for the space he had entered. Dakota spoke first. Raphael Cruz does not move without reason, he said. If he has come, it is because he believes we are vulnerable. We are not, one warrior snapped. Dakota didn't even look at him. Strength is not what you say, it is what others believe. Silence followed. Ayanna leaned forward slightly. He knows about the challenge, she said. He knows I refuse the alliances, and now he sees opportunity, Dakota added. Another elder spoke, his voice thin but sharp. Then the solution is simple. You must choose. Ayanna's eyes flicked toward him. I already did. No, the elder said. You delayed. Ayanna's voice hardened. I will not marry for strategy. You will if it means survival. I will fight for survival and lose everything in the process. The tension thickened. Elias watched it unfold, silent, but understanding more than they probably realize. This wasn't just about war. It was about control, about fear, about a future no one could agree on. Finally, Dakota turned to Elias. You, he said. You stand here among us, but you are not one of us. Why should we trust you? Every eye shifted. Elias didn't flinch. You shouldn't, he said simply. A ripple of surprise moved through the group. Dakota's gaze sharpened. Then why are you here? Elias stepped forward slightly, just enough for the firelight to catch his face. Because whether you trust me or not, the men coming for you don't care. Murmurs again. They're not testing your strength, Elias continued. They're testing your response, your hesitation, your division. Dakota said nothing, but his silence invited more. Elias glanced briefly at Ayanna before continuing. You've got warriors, land, numbers, he said. But you don't have unity. That struck hard. You speak boldly for a stranger, one of the warriors said. Elias shrugged. I speak honestly. Dakota studied him. Then speak this, what would you do? Elias took a breath, then answered. You stop reacting, he said. And you start deciding. And how do we do that? Dakota asked. You pick a direction, Elias replied. Not 10, not 2, 1. His eyes shifted to Ayanna. And you stand behind it. The fire crackled. The air felt heavier, because everyone knew what he was saying, and what it meant. The elder who had spoken earlier leaned forward. And what direction is that? He pressed. Elias didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, the one she chooses. All eyes turned to Ayanna again. But this time, it felt different. Not forced, not demanded, offered. Ayanna felt it. The weight, the shift, the moment. She rose slowly to her feet. If we divide ourselves with fear, she said, her voice steady, carrying across the circle, then Raphael has already won. Silence. If we bind ourselves with forced alliances, she continued, then we lose who we are before the fight even begins. More silence. Then, we fight, she said. The words settled like thunder. We fight on our terms. Not his. Not anyone else's. Dakota watched her carefully. And what of the alliances? He asked. Ayanna met his gaze. We choose them, she said. We are not given to them. A long pause. Then Dakota nodded just slightly. It wasn't full agreement. But it wasn't opposition either. It was something in between. And in that moment, it was enough. Later that night, the camp quieted. Not peaceful, but settled. For now Elias stood at the edge of the camp, looking out into the darkness beyond. Ayanna approached quietly. You spoke well, she said. He glanced at her. So did you. She stopped beside him, following his gaze into the distance. You changed something tonight, she said. So did you. A faint smile touched her lips. People don't usually agree with me that easily. They didn't. Elias said. They just didn't disagree enough. She let out a soft breath. That's true. Silence settled between them again. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was grounding. After a moment, Ayanna spoke. You could still leave, she said. Elias shook his head. Not anymore. Why? He looked at her. Because this isn't just your fight. And whose is it? He hesitated, then said quietly, ours. The word lingered, closer than before, more dangerous than before. Ayanna felt something shift inside her again. Something she wasn't used to, something she didn't fully understand. You barely know me, she said. Softly, Elias smiled faintly, starting to. She studied him for a moment. Then asked, and what have you learned? He thought about it, then said, that you're stronger than anyone I've met. She didn't react. So? And that you're more alone than you let anyone see. That one landed hard. Her gaze dropped slightly, just for a second. Then she looked back up. And what else? She asked. Elias's voice softened. That you don't want to be. The world seemed to still again. Ayanna didn't speak, didn't move, because he was right, and that terrified her more than any battle ever could. In the distance, a wolf howled. The sound echoed across the plains, a warning, or a promise. Ayanna finally broke the silence. If you stay, she said, everything will change. Elias nodded. I know. And if you die? He gave a small, almost amused breath. Then I guess I won't have to worry about what comes next. She didn't smile, didn't find it amusing. Instead, she stepped closer, close enough that the space between them disappeared. That's not how this works, she said quietly. Elias looked at her. Then how does it work? Ayanna held his gaze, and for the first time, she didn't look like a warrior, or a leader, or a storm. She looked like a woman standing at the edge of something she had never allowed herself to feel before. You stay, she said softly, and you live. The words weren't a request. They were something deeper, something unspoken. Elias understood. He nodded once. I'll try. It wasn't a promise, but it was honest. And for now, that was enough. But neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows beyond the firelight, one of their own, silent, hidden, listening, and already deciding who would fall first. Dawn came quietly, but it carried the weight of something broken. The sky stretched pale and cold over the land, the first light of morning brushing against the camp like a warning instead of a promise. Smoke from the night fires drifted low, clinging to the ground, refusing to rise. Ayanna woke before the others, not because she had rested, but because something inside her wouldn't let her. The air felt wrong. Too still, too expectant. She stepped outside her tent, scanning the camp with sharp, searching eyes. Warriors were beginning to stir, some already tending to horses, others checking weapons. It looked normal, but it wasn't. She could feel it. Ayanna moved quickly, her instincts guiding her toward the outer edge of the camp, the side facing the western ridge, the same direction the riders had come from. As she approached, she saw him, Elias, already awake, already watching. You feel it too, he said without turning. He stopped beside him. Yes. They stood in silence for a moment, the wind barely moving around them. Too quiet, Elias added. Ayanna nodded. They won't attack the same way twice, she said. Not after last night. Then they'll change tactics. Yes. A pause. Then they'll come from inside. The words settled heavy between. Elias looked at her. You're thinking betrayal. I'm thinking strategy, she replied. And if I were Raphael, I wouldn't waste men breaking walls. Her gaze hardened. I'd open the gate. Elias exhaled slowly. Then we've got a problem. No, Ayanna said, her voice tightening. We have a traitor. It didn't take long for suspicion to spread. Too fast. Too easy. By mid-morning, the camp was no longer just tense, it was fractured. Whispers moved like wildfire. Accusations followed. Old rivalries resurfaced, and fear did the rest. Ayanna stood at the center of it all, trying to hold something together that was already slipping through her fingers. This is what he wants, she said, her voice cutting through the rising noise. Division, doubt, and what if he already has it? One warrior shot back. All eyes shifted. It was Nakoa, strong, respected, fierce, and now, questioning. What are you saying? Ayana asked carefully. Oa stepped forward, his gaze steady but cold. I'm saying maybe the threat isn't outside our camp. Silence. Then, careful, Dakota warned. But Nakoa didn't stop. We were strong before this, he continued. United. Then suddenly, a stranger arrives. His eyes move to Elias, and everything changes. The implication was clear, sharp, dangerous. Elias didn't react, didn't defend himself, he just stood there, watching. Understand? Ayana's voice hardened. He fought beside me, she said. And how convenient is that? Nakoa replied. He earns your trust in one night? He didn't ask for it. No, Nakoa said. He took it. The tension snapped tight. Warriors shifted. Hands moved closer to weapons. Ayana stepped forward, placing herself between them. That's enough, she said, but Nakoa's gaze didn't waver. You refused every warrior who stood before you, he said. Men who would have died for you. For us. His voice rose slightly. And now, you stand beside one who has given nothing to this tribe. Elias spoke then, quiet, calm. I gave something last night. Nakoa turned to him sharply. You gave survival, Elias continued. Same as everyone else who fought. That does not make you one of us. I never said it did. Then what are you? Nakoa demanded. Elias met his gaze. I'm the man who stayed when I didn't have to. The words landed, but they didn't settle the storm. Oa scoffed. Or, the man who stayed because he has something to gain. Before Elias could respond, Ayana stepped in. He gains nothing, she said, firmly. Nakoa's eyes flicked to her. Are you sure? The question wasn't about Elias anymore. It was about her. Her judgment. Her choice. Ayana felt it. The doubt. The pressure. The weight of leadership pressing down harder than ever. And for a brief moment, she hesitated. Just a fraction. But it was enough. Nakoa saw it. And that was all he needed. Look at her, he said to the others. Even she is unsure. That was the breaking point. Ayana's expression changed instantly. The hesitation vanished, replaced by something far more dangerous. Certain. I am not unsure, she said. Her voice low but cutting. Oa held her gaze. Then prove it. A long silence followed. The kind that shapes decisions. The kind that changes everything. Ayana turned slowly, not to Nakoa, but to Elias. Their eyes met, and in that moment, everything unspoken between them rose to the surface. Trust, doubt, fear, something deeper, something neither of them could deny anymore. You said this fight is ours, she said quietly. Elias nodded once. I meant it. Ayana took a breath, then turned back to the tribe. He stays, she said. Fine, unshakable. And anyone who challenges that, challenges me. The words hit like thunder. No room for argument. No space for doubt. Nakoa's jaw tightened. But he didn't step forward again, not yet. Because this wasn't over, even close. The attack came at sunset. Not from the ridge, not from the plains, but from within. A scream tore through the camp. Then another, and another. Fire erupted. Near the supply tents, flames climbing fast, devouring everything in their path. Chaos followed instantly. Water. Someone shouted, get the horses. They're inside. Elias moved before the words fully registered, grabbing Ayana's arm as another explosion of fire burst nearby. They lit it from within. He said, I know, she replied, already scanning for movement. Then she saw Oa near the edge of the flames, not fighting them, not helping, watching and then turning, running. Yana's breath caught. No, Elias saw it too. That's your traitor. But before they could move, gunfire erupted again. Raphael's men, they had returned, and this time, the gate was already open. The riders stormed in through the chaos, cutting through the camp like blades through cloth. Warriors scrambled to respond, but the fire had already broken their formation. This wasn't an attack. It was a collapse. Elias fired, dropping one rider before pulling Ayanna down as another shot tore past them. "We need to move," he shouted. "My people, they need you alive." She hesitated for just a second, then nodded. They fought their way through the chaos, side by side, but the camp was falling apart around them. Smoke filled the air, flames roared, screams echoed, and in the middle of it all, Nakoa disappeared into the night. The betrayal complete, the damage done. Elias grabbed Ayanna's hand as they reached the far edge of the camp. "This way." They mounted quickly, barely escaping as more riders poured in behind them. They didn't stop, didn't look back. Not until they reached the ridge overlooking the burning camp. Ayanna turned then, and what she saw broke something inside her. Her home, her people, her responsibility, all swallowed by fire and betrayal. Elias watched her carefully. "This isn't over," he said. She didn't respond, didn't move. Then slowly, her expression changed. The grief didn't disappear, but it hardened, sharpened, turned into something else, something stronger, something unstoppable. "No," she said quietly, "it's not." She looked at him, and in her eyes, there was no hesitation anymore. And no doubt. Only fire. "We take it back," she said. Elias nodded. "Together." The word felt different. Now, uncertain, not fragile, real, and unbreakable. As the flames consumed the camp behind them, and the night swallowed the last traces of what once was, a new story began. One forged in loss. In betrayal. In war. And in a love that had survived the moment everything else fell apart. The fire burned through the night until nothing remained but ash. By dawn, the land where the Apache camp once stood was quiet again. Quiet. Smoke curled weakly into the pale sky, like the last breath of something that had fought hard to live. Ayanna stood on the ridge, unmoving. She had not slept. She had not spoken. Below her, the ruins stretched wide. Charred earth, broken structures, the faint outlines of what had once been home. Survivors had scattered in the chaos, some fleeing into the hills, others taken, some lost forever. And somewhere out there, Nakoa and Raphael. Elias stood a few steps behind her, giving her space, but never leaving. "You don't have to carry all of it," he said quietly. Ayanna didn't turn. "I do." "No," he replied. "You choose to." That made her glance back just slightly. "There's a difference." Her eyes held his for a moment. Then she looked away again. "If I don't," she said, "then what was any of this for?" Elias stepped closer, his boots crunching softly against the dry earth. "For what comes next." Ayanna exhaled slowly. "What comes next is war." Elias nodded once. "Then we fight it the right way." She turned fully now, studying him. "And what way is that?" Elias met her gaze, steady as ever. "Not with anger," he said. "Not with revenge." Her jaw tightened. "They burned my home." "No. They turned my own people against me." "No. They took everything." Elias didn't raise his voice, didn't push. He just said, "Then don't let them take you too." Silence. Heavy, unavoidable. Ayanna looked at him, really looked this time, and slowly, the storm inside her shifted. Not gone, but controlled, focused. "You always talk like you've already seen the end," she said. Elias gave a faint, almost tired smile. "I've seen enough endings to know how they start." She studied him for another moment, then nodded. "All right," she said. "Then we end this." They didn't go back to the camp. There was nothing left to return to. Instead, they followed the tracks. Raphael hadn't tried to hide them. Men like him didn't run. They moved forward, confident, certain, and that certainty would be his mistake. By midday, the trail led them into a narrow canyon, high walls of red rock rising on either side, cutting off most of the light. The air inside felt different, closer, tighter. Ayanna slowed her horse. "This is a trap," she said. Elias nodded. "Yeah, then we walk into it?" He looked at her. "You got a better idea?" A faint, dangerous smile touched her lips. No, they dismounted, moved on foot, weapons ready. Every step echoed faintly against the canyon walls, each sound sharper than it should have been. Watching, waiting, then a voice. Welcome. Raphael stepped out from the shadows ahead, his presence calm, almost amused. Behind him, armed men appeared along the ridges above, rifles aimed down. And beside him, Nakoa, alive, unharmed. Ayana's expression didn't change, but something inside her burned hotter. You chose your side, she said. Nakoa didn't flinch. I chose survival. You chose betrayal. I chose reality, he snapped. You were leading us to destruction. And this? She gestured around. This is your solution? Raphael chuckled softly. Enough, he said. This isn't about philosophy. His eyes moved between them. It's about power. Elias stepped slightly forward, positioning himself just enough to see everything. You talk a lot for a man hiding behind numbers, he said. Raphael smiled. And you talk like a man who still thinks this is a fair fight. Elias shrugged. Never needed it to be. Ayana stepped beside him. This ends today, she said. Raphael tilted his head. Yes, he agreed. It does. He raised his hand. The men above tightened their aim. But before he could give the signal, Ayana moved. Not forward, not toward him, but sideways, fast, precise. Elias followed instantly, understanding without words. Shots rang out, but they weren't where Raphael expected. They used the canyon, the walls, the angles. Elias fired upward, forcing the men on the ridge to reposition. Ayana moved low, fast, closing the distance toward Raphael and Nakoa before the trap could fully collapse. Spread out, Raphael shouted, but it was already breaking, because this wasn't the same fight as before. This time they were ready. Ayana reached Nakoa first. Their clash was immediate, steel meeting steel, movement against movement. He was strong, skilled, but she was something else now, focused, unstoppable. You destroyed everything, he shouted as they fought. No, she replied coldly. You did. Their blades locked. For a moment, they stood inches apart. You were weak, Nakoa said. Ayana's eyes burned. No, she said. I just refused to become you. She twisted, disarmed him in a single, fluid motion, and drove him to his knees. He looked up at her, not afraid, but realizing. Too late. Ayana hesitated. Just for a fraction. Elias saw it fighting off another attacker nearby. Finish it, he called. Ayana's grip tightened, and then she lowered the blade. Nakoa froze, confused. Live with it, she said. That's your punishment. She turned away, and in that moment, she chose who she was. Not vengeance, not cruelty, something stronger. Behind her, Nakoa collapsed not from a blade, but from the weight of what he had done. Across the canyon, Elias faced Raphael. The fight was different, harder. Raphael was fast, calculated, ruthless. You think you've won? Raphael said, circling him. I think you talk too much, Elias replied. They clashed fists, knives, movement sharp and brutal. Raphael struck first, landing a blow that sent Elias stumbling back. You're not special, Raphael said. Just another man trying to play hero. Elias wiped blood from his lip. Never said I was. He moved again, faster this time, more direct. No hesitation, no doubt. The fight turned. Raphael faltered, just enough. Elias took the opening, disarmed him, drove him to the ground, and held him there. It was over. Raphael looked up at him, breathing hard. Do it, he said. Finish it. Elias didn't move, didn't strike. Instead, he said, no. Raphael frowned. Why? Elias glanced toward Ayana, then back at him. Because this isn't about you. He stood, stepped back, and let him live. Not out of mercy, but because the fight was already won. Raphael lay there, stunned, defeated in a way he hadn't expected. By sunset, it was over. The canyon was quiet again. The surviving warriors had fled. The threat, broken. Ayana stood at the edge of the canyon, the wind moving softly through her hair. Elias joined her. It's done, he said. She nodded. But not finished. He glanced at her. What do you mean? She looked out toward the horizon. My people are still out there, she said. Scattered. Lost. Then we find them. She looked at him. And after that? Elias smiled faintly. After that? We figure it out. Ayanna studied him for a long moment. Then asked, why didn't you leave? He met her gaze. Because I found something worth staying for. Her breath caught slightly. And what is that? Elias stepped closer, not rushed, not uncertain, just real. You. The word landed softly, but it changed everything. Ayanna didn't look away, didn't step back. For the first time, she let herself feel it, not as a distraction, not as a weakness, but as something earned, something chosen. Out of 100 warriors, she had refused them all. But this man, this quiet, stubborn, unexpected cowboy, was never trying to win her. And somehow, that's why he did. The wind carried across the canyon as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and fire. And in that moment, they stood not as strangers, not as survivors, but as something more, something unbreakable,